Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about critique and doing a more formal critique this time than we did with the peer review on the last project. So, when we're thinking about design critiques, we are encouraging a positive culture to improve products, whether or not that is a product like a tech product or a cleaning product or a painting or a piece of art. We can think about doing design critiques on anything that is designed, really. And what I'm hoping you guys really get out of this is thinking about how you're talking about the feedback. So I know you've learned a little bit about that so far, and I've given you some guidance and some videos to watch about how to really talk about, well, I guess first of all, design principles, right? How to talk about design principles, how to talk about line and color and alignment and all of the visual pieces. But we're also going to talk about the design process pieces. Is this piece meeting the goal of the company, the goal of the assignment? What could be done better? Where is it weak? Where is it strong? And how we can say these things in encouraging, positive ways that induce productivity and induce constructive feedback so that the design process can continue to be iterative and continuously improve. So I want to talk a little bit about what that means to be able to induce feedback and growth. So what a critique is encouraging. It's subjective, which means that your own opinions and your own feelings are coming into it, and it's objective. So it's both. And objective means that you are stating facts and things that are not related to your own feelings and thoughts. What it is not is negative. It's never negative. You have to think about ways to give feedback that is constructive. It's not personal. It has nothing to do with the background or the person at all, or the people that created the product or the piece. And it's not grading. We're not grading them. We're not using a rubric this time. We are going to talk about whether or not the goals of the assignment, or if we were in a business world, the goals of the project were met. But we are not grading them. This doesn't need to feel like an A through F situation. So the stages you're going to go through in the document and the stages of a design critique are describe, analyze, interpret, talk about future development, and talk about the goals of the project. So I want to talk about that, or look real quick at this this critique document that you're using, because that's how I have it broken up. We have a description area, we have an analysis area, we have an interpretation area, and a future developments. And then we have goals. And I'm going to talk about what each one of these mean based on what we're going to talk about here in a minute. So for description, let me get back to description real quick. What I want you guys to do, and this can become really hard for some people, is describe what you're looking at. Describe your peers' work as if you were on the phone with somebody and they couldn't see it. And I'm going to say that one more time. Describe it as if somebody couldn't see it. So literally, if I was looking at a community poster from one of these assignments, I would say, I'm looking at a full color poster. It is 11 by 17. There is a picture of a basketball on it. Somebody's dribbling. There's two figures in it. It says basketball event at the top. It has the dates at the bottom. It's a mix of typography and images, and it's all in pastel colors. So really, really a description, an objective description of what it is. That's all that is. That might seem simple, and it might seem maybe too simple, but it's important that you're able to identify what you're looking at before you move on to analyze it. Okay, so the next piece is the analysis, and this is where we're going to bring in our elements of art and principles of design, and we are going to analyze the pieces that the piece you're looking at are doing well, or what's jumping out at you from these elements and principles. So you're going to identify which elements are present and expand upon that. So if we were looking at this, I was thinking about an example of something I'm looking at, I might pick out that line, space, and texture are really prominent in the piece. And then here in the notes, I'm going to talk about why. I might talk about the texture. It looks like it's the surface of a basketball, and the graphic is really exemplary of it looking like it's a texture, something to that effect. You're going to talk about and analyze which of these pieces are exemplary in the piece. I'm going to add that at this point, we're still being objective. We're still saying, okay, here's the shapes that are in the piece. They're on the left and the right. There's triangles and circles. You're still kind of being objective here in this analysis piece, even though you're picking out and analyzing what parts of these are in the piece. So the next piece is interpretation, and this is where we start to get subjective. So now we're looking for a concept. We've talked a lot about concept. I'm big on concept. A concept, connections, relation, and meaning. And this is subjective because it's bringing in your background, your expertise, your feelings as the audience, what you see. So when you're asking yourself these questions about the piece, ask yourself, is there a concept? Do you see a clear concept? Are there repeating triangles? Does the triangle relate to a mountain, like in the Toblerone logo kind of situation? Can you make any connections? How can you relate? What is your background and why do you relate to this? What does it remind you of? Does it remind you of something from your childhood? Does it remind you of something from where you work or from where you're from? Bring in your experience here and interpret it the way that your experiences guide you to interpret it. What does it mean to you? So this is where it becomes very subjective, but it's very useful to the person who created it to get that subjective feedback from other people, because you are a person, you are a user, you are our audience. And the last part of the subjective piece is really the future development. So what strengths can be furthered? What strengths does the person who created it have that can be furthered? And what ideas are in it that can be furthered? So looking at questions to ask, how can you envision seeing this further developed? And what strengths can the creator further in to use in the next project? So maybe like you can tell that they are really good at sketching or they're really good at Illustrator and you'd like to see them kind of grow in that area. Or how can you see it further developed, as in maybe the poster has really good color, but the typography might be a little bit plain compared to the color. So maybe it could be further developed in its typography. So thinking about how can it go to the next level? What would be your suggestions for it being even better, even if it's already really, really good? And then the very last part, which I know I said there's no grading, and this still is not grading, but it is the goals of the project. It is your judgment. Is this project or this thing you're looking at successful in meeting the defined project goals? This is important. It's so important in the project management setting and in the design setting to make sure that you do not lose sight of what the final goals are supposed to be of the project you're getting paid to do. So if we're looking at that here, what I've laid out is the grading criteria, which in effect are our goals here. I asked you guys to make a high quality technical quality poster that has no spelling errors, that's kind of ready to go live. I've asked it to be up to industry standard, ready to be printed if everything's the right dimensions, everything's the right resolution, photos are not warped, everything's original artwork. I've asked you to focus on concept that matches the tone of the event for the branding. And I've asked you to be really cognizant of your audience and the branding. So those were the goals of the project. If we were in a paid design environment, you would be asking yourself if the client would be ready to see this project, if what they said that they wanted as the goals, if we're meeting them here. So this becomes kind of the final piece. We're using a grading rubric for it, but think about it as the project goals. So I hope that has helped. I encourage you again to think about ways to be constructive in your wording. I encourage you to go back and rewatch the video on surviving a critique. There are some really good suggestions there for how to just talk about things. And I even encourage you to talk about it with someone like your roommate or your family member or somebody that you're around, a friend. Maybe open up the document and talk about it with them. Talking about it out loud is very, very helpful. So think about using all these techniques and give your peers some really good feedback so that they can progress. Thank you very much.